They didn't send you a letter. They didn't hold a press conference your local news actually covered. They didn't run ads during the game, interrupt your podcast, or send a push notification to your phone. They just turned it on, quietly, efficiently, and with full legal authority. And if you drive Interstate 95, or if someone you love does, that silence is about to cost you. This is about the new automated enforcement system now fully active on Interstate 95. And what is happening on that highway right now is unlike anything American drivers have faced before on any road in this country. Not a pilot program anymore, not a proposal, not a warning period, fully operational, processing thousands of plates per hour, generating violation notices before drivers have even made it home, and doing all of it without a single officer having to pull anyone over. The machine doesn't care about your explanation. It doesn't have a bad day where it lets things slide. It sees your plate. It checks the database, and it sends the notice. That is the new reality of driving one of the most heavily traveled highways on the planet, and almost nobody knows it happened. If this is the first time you're hearing any of this, that tells you everything you need to know about how well informed the public has been kept on something that affects hundreds of thousands of drivers every single day. Subscribe right now and hit that bell, because this channel is one of the few places where you are going to get the full picture on stories like this one. Not the sanitized version, not the government press release dressed up as news, but the actual information that changes how you move through your daily life. Now let's get into it, because the details of what just went live on I-95 are going to shock a lot of people who thought they already knew how this highway worked. To understand why this moment is so significant, you have to understand what Interstate 95 actually is, because most people who drive it every day have never really stopped to reckon with the scale of it. This highway runs 19,926 miles. It starts at the Canadian border in Houlton, Maine, and it doesn't stop until it reaches Miami, Florida. Along the way, it cuts through 15 states plus the District of Columbia. It is the connective tissue of the entire eastern United States, the artery through which millions of people move to work, to family, to commerce every single day on its busiest segments. This highway carries an estimated 300,000 vehicles a day through the metro corridors around Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Miami. That number surges dramatically during peak travel windows. By almost any honest measurement, I-95 is the single most important highway in America. And for years, it has also carried a distinction nobody should be proud of. It is consistently ranked among the 3 most dangerous highway corridors in the entire country. Federal highway safety data compiled through 2025 tells a story that should have demanded a serious public reckoning long. Before now, over the most recent complete 5-year period on record, this highway and its direct connectors saw more than 14,000 injury crashes. Over 1,100 people died. Think about that number, 1,100 people. That is not a statistic buried in a transportation department footnote. That is a small town's worth of human beings wiped off the earth on one highway over 5 years. Real families, real lives, real absences at dinner tables and birthday parties and graduations. The federal government and the 15 state transportation departments that share jurisdiction over this corridor looked at those numbers and decided that the old enforcement model was no longer acceptable. The old model, the one most of us grew up with, required a human officer to observe a violation, get their vehicle moving, initiate a pursuit, conduct a traffic stop, and write a ticket by hand. It was slow, it was resource intensive, and statistically, it caught only a tiny fraction of the violations actually occurring on this road at any given moment. The new framework throws that model out. What replaced it is a fully automated enforcement infrastructure, cameras, radar arrays, infrared sensors, license plate recognition systems capable of processing thousands of vehicles per hour, all of it cross-referenced in real time against state registration databases. Speed is measured from overhead gantries, without any officer on the ground. Violations are flagged, linked to registered owners, and notices are generated automatically. By the time you reach your exit, the citation may already be queued for your mailbox. No traffic stop, no interaction, no opportunity to explain. And here's the part that should make every American driver sit up straight. This is not a temporary measure. This is the new architecture of highway enforcement in this country. The first major change that went live across the corridor is a sweeping expansion of automated speed enforcement. And the scale of it is something most coverage has dramatically undersold. Previously, speed cameras on I-95 were largely limited to active construction zones, places where workers were physically present, and the legal justification for tighter enforcement was straightforward. Under the new framework, permanent speed enforcement infrastructure has been installed and activated at 47 additional locations along the corridor. 47, and these are not all work zones. Many of these new locations are ordinary highway segments with no construction activity. They were selected purely because federal crash data identified them as statistically dangerous stretches. The cameras are up, the radar arrays are live, and the enforcement thresholds have been tightened in ways that are going to catch a massive number of drivers completely off guard. So here's the specific number that matters. Where the previous general practice allowed up to 11 miles per hour over the posted limit before an automated system generated a violation, that threshold has now been cut to 6 miles per hour over in standard enforcement zones. In designated high-density traffic areas, defined as any segment within 10 miles of a major metropolitan interchange, that threshold drops to just 3 miles per hour over the limit. 3 miles per hour. If you are doing 68 and a 65 near a major interchange, you are inside the violation window. A first automated speeding violation in a standard zone starts at $75 in a high-density area. That first offense begins at $125. Repeat violations within a rolling 12-month window escalate to $250, then to $400, with the possibility of license points added at the discretion of the state where the camera recorded you. But as significant as the speed enforcement expansion is, the second change deserves far more attention than it has received, because this is the rule that almost nobody is talking about, and it is the one that generated the highest volume of violations during the months of pilot testing on this corridor. Every major American highway carries a posted minimum speed just as it carries a posted maximum. On most of I-95, that minimum sits at 45 miles per hour in standard travel lanes. Driving significantly below that threshold in a through lane is not just bad driving, it is illegal. And from a crash risk standpoint, it is arguably more dangerous than moderate speeding because of the speed differentials it creates between vehicles sharing the same lane. New automated sensors are now active in designated segments, specifically designed to detect vehicles traveling below the minimum threshold. If you are cruising through a flowing traffic segment at 35 or 40 miles per hour, while surrounding traffic is moving at 65, the system records your plate and a violation notice is generated. A first minimum speed violation carries a $50 fine. And before you dismiss this as something that only catches the most extreme edge cases, consider what the pilot data showed. Researchers testing the system found that during periods of normal traffic flow, a substantial and consistent percentage of vehicles were traveling below the minimum threshold, not because of emergencies, but because of distracted driving, excessive caution, phone use, navigation, confusion, or simply the habit of crawling through a stretch while looking for a sign. That is who this rule is going to hit hardest. Ordinary drivers who never once thought of themselves as a traffic hazard, generating violation notices in a system that was designed precisely for them. The third change, activating on this corridor, is one that most drivers will likely find the most surprising, because the technology behind it is something the general public had no idea was even being developed for highway use. Mandatory minimum following distance enforcement is now operational in designated high-density corridor segments, specifically the stretches within 15 miles of a major urban interchange, where average traffic density exceeds a defined threshold. Overhead sensor arrays, combining radar and infrared measurement, are capable of calculating in real time the following distance between consecutive vehicles traveling in the same lane. The legal standard is a 2-second gap. If your gap falls below 2 seconds and stays there for more than 4 consecutive seconds, the system records a violation against your plate. A first offense costs $100. A second within a 12-month rolling period rises to $200. Now, 2 seconds sounds generous. It sounds like more than enough space. But here's the reality check. At 65 miles per hour, a 2-second following distance means your vehicle is approximately 190 feet behind the one ahead of you. That is more than half the length of a football field. Think about what the normal following distance looks like on I-95 through New Jersey or through the corridor heading into Baltimore during morning rush hour. Most drivers on this highway in those markets are operating at following distances of half a second or less during congested stretches, not because they are reckless, but because traffic culture on this road has normalized it for decades. The new automated following distance enforcement is going to catch an enormous number of drivers who genuinely believe they are operating safely and will be blindsided by the notice in their mailbox. The fourth change brings AI-powered distracted driving detection cameras to 23 interchange and ramp locations along the corridor, and the detection rate revealed during the 8-month pilot testing phase should trouble everyone. These cameras use image recognition technology to detect handheld device usage as drivers approach and pass through designated interchange zones. During the pilot period, across 3 initial locations, the system detected handheld device use in an average of 12.4% of vehicles captured during peak hours. 12% on a highway that carries 300,000 vehicles a day. That is tens of thousands of drivers every single day holding a phone in a hand while operating a vehicle on the most dangerous highway corridor in America. Unlike the speed or following distance systems, the distracted driving camera process does include a human review step. A reviewer confirms the image before any notice is issued. But if that confirmation comes back positive, the fine structure is severe. A first distracted driving violation at these fixed camera locations runs $150 in most corridor states. In New York and New Jersey, where enhanced distracted driving penalties apply, that first offense can reach $450 once surcharges are factored in. Not $150, $450 for one moment of picking up your phone near an interchange. The fifth change targets HOV lane compliance, and the enforcement technology now being used to monitor those lanes is sophisticated enough to give anyone who has ever cheated the carpool lane a reason to reconsider. The new sensor infrastructure combines infrared imaging with machine learning-based occupancy estimation to flag vehicles that appear to be carrying a single occupant while traveling in a restricted lane during enforcement hours. Flagged vehicles are either confirmed through camera footage by a reviewing officer or physically intercepted by a patrol unit responding to the real-time flag generated by the system. The fine structure varies across the corridor states. In Florida, a first violation is $65. In Virginia, it is $125. Maryland charges $90. Delaware and New Jersey start at $75. New York and Connecticut start at $150. Every single one of those fines applies on top of any license points that may also be assessed. And for anyone tempted to think the occupancy detection technology is imprecise enough to challenge the machine learning system was specifically trained on this use case over an extended period before deployment. The error rate it carried into full operation is low enough that the agencies involved were comfortable staking their enforcement credibility on it. The sixth change is primarily aimed at the commercial vehicle and trucking industry, but it matters to every driver on this corridor because of how directly it reshapes the traffic flow dynamics and everyone else has to navigate. Weigh and motion sensors have been installed in travel lanes at 31 designated locations along the corridor. These sensors measure the gross weight of commercial vehicles in motion. No scale house required. No vehicle pullout, no disruption to the main traffic stream. If a commercial vehicle registers over the legal gross weight limit for the state in which the sensor is located, an automated alert is dispatched to the nearest weigh station or mobile enforcement unit, and the vehicle is flagged for a mandatory stop at the next available enforcement point. Fines for overweight commercial violations begin in the hundreds of dollars and escalate into the thousands, depending on severity and state. For the rest of us in passenger vehicles, the practical significance is this. The traffic disruptions that used to accompany commercial vehicle enforcement, the lane slowdowns, the merging chaos when trucks were routed off onto scale house ramps, are significantly reduced by this new approach. The enforcement happens in the lane, the flag goes to a unit down the road, and traffic keeps moving. It is one of the few genuinely positive traffic flow outcomes embedded in this entire new framework. Before the final section, let's be real about something. If you've made it this far into this breakdown, you are clearly someone who takes this seriously and wants to actually understand what is happening on the roads you drive every day. That is exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 7 changes blindsided you the most, because I genuinely want to know what people were and weren't aware of going into this. And share this video with anyone in your life who uses I-95 regularly, not as a favor to this channel, as a favor to them. Because the seventh change, the one we are about to get into right now, is the one that is going to generate the most violations among ordinary, non-reckless drivers who simply had no idea this system was being activated. The seventh change is called the Registration Hold Enforcement Protocol, and it is the single most consequential piece of this entire new framework for ordinary American drivers. Here is the mechanism. The license plate recognition infrastructure now operating at every gantry point, every toll plaza, and every activated camera station along the entire I-95 corridor is not only logging speeds and measuring following distances. Every single time your plate is read, and on this highway, your plate is being read at multiple points on every trip, the system conducts a real-time database, a cross-check against state motor vehicle registration records. It checks whether your registration is current. It checks whether there are outstanding violations attached to your plate. And in states that use electronic insurance verification, it checks whether your insurance coverage is current in the state database. Now, here's the specific enforcement trigger that is expected to generate the highest volume of violation notices during the first weeks of this new enforcement cycle in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Virginia. Vehicles with registrations that have been expired for more than 30 days and that are detected traveling on the interstate highway system are now subject to an automated violation notice that is completely separate from any notice that may have already been issued locally. The fine starts at $100 and includes an administrative processing fee in addition to whatever local or state fine may also apply. Why does this matter so much? Because across these states, an enormous number of drivers, not criminals, not chronic violators, but ordinary people navigating the chaos of daily life, have registrations that quietly lapsed over the past year or two. Some of them let it slide because local enforcement has been inconsistent enough that they got away with it locally. Some didn't realize it had expired. Some were dealing with financial pressure, a move, a family crisis, and registration renewal fell down the priority list. Every single one of those drivers, the moment they get on I-95 in a state covered by this protocol, will generate a violation notice before they reach the next exit. The system does not require an officer to notice your expired sticker. It does not require a traffic stop. It reads your plate, queries the database, finds the expired registration, and queues the notice. All of that happens in the time it takes you to pass under the gantry at highway speed. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because information without action is worthless. And the whole point of understanding what just went live on this highway is to respond to it intelligently before it costs you money or worse. The first and most urgent thing you need to do is check your vehicle registration. Tonight, go to your car, open the glove compartment, and look at the registration card. If it is expired or set to expire within the next 30 days, renewing it immediately should be your single highest priority. In nearly every state along this corridor, you can complete that renewal online through your state DMV website in under 10 minutes. The cost of renewal is almost always a fraction of what you would pay in fines if the automated system catches you first. Do not wait for the notice to arrive. Renew now. The second thing you need to do is take an honest look at your speed habits on this road. Many drivers built their comfort zone on years of inconsistent enforcement, where the risk of being caught felt manageable because catching you required a human being to decide to pursue you. That calculus is gone. The automated system does not get distracted. It does not overlook vehicles because it is handling another stop. It does not cut anyone a break at the end of a long shift. If you routinely drive this corridor at 7, 8, or 9 miles per hour over the limit, that habit is going to generate violations in high-density zones. The only real protection is changing the behavior. Third, verify that your vehicle is currently listed under a valid insurance policy and that your insurer has transmitted your current coverage status to your state DMV database. Lag periods happen, especially when policies renew, lapse briefly, or get modified. If your insurance information is not current in the state system, you could be flagged during a plate cross-check even while you are actively covered. Call your carrier or check their online portal and confirm your coverage is reflected accurately. If there's any discrepancy, request that your insurer submit an updated electronic verification immediately. Fourth, adjust your following distance before you get back on this highway. 2 seconds of following distance at 65 miles per hour is approximately 190 feet. Start measuring that gap consciously and start creating it consistently, particularly in the stretches approaching major interchanges. Your driving record and your wallet will both benefit from it. Fifth, if you are a regular commuter using an E-ZPass or equivalent transponder account, log into your account today and confirm your balance is positive and your account information is current. In several corridor states, the integration of this new enforcement infrastructure with existing toll systems means a vehicle with a transponder account in arrears can generate additional compliance flags at gantry points. Keep it current. Here's the final thing you need to understand about all of this, and it is the part that extends well beyond I-95 specifically. The infrastructure being activated on this corridor is not the conclusion of a process. It is the opening move of one. The federal and state coordinated enforcement framework built for this highway was explicitly designed to serve as a national pilot model. The same technology going live on I-95 right now is already being evaluated for deployment on Interstate 10, Interstate 80, Interstate 75, and Interstate 40 across every major interstate corridor in this country over the coming years. What feels new and unfamiliar about driving I-95 today is going to become the standard experience of every major American highway within a decade. The era of driving habits that survived because catching you required a human being to be in the right place at the right time is over. It is being systematically dismantled by automated systems that operate around the clock, carry no staffing limitations, and exercise no discretion whatsoever. The question is not whether this transformation is coming to every highway you drive. The question is whether you are ready for it when it arrives. And one final warning before this is done, a scam is already circulating, and it is specifically targeting drivers who just heard about these new enforcement rules and are feeling anxious about their registration or their driving record. Fraudulent text messages and emails are being sent claiming to be official notices from state transportation departments or from a fictional federal interstate compliance office, warning recipients that their license plate has been flagged and demanding immediate online payment to avoid escalating penalties. Every single one of those messages is a scam. Real violation notices from legitimate enforcement agencies are always delivered through United States Postal, mail sent to the registered address of the vehicle owner. They are never sent by text message. They are never sent by email, demanding immediate payment through a link. If you receive anything like that, do not click anything, do not send any money, and report it to your state attorney general's office. The government just activated a surveillance and enforcement system on one of the most important roads in America, and most of the people who drive it every single day had no idea it was coming. That is a failure of public information on a scale that should make everyone angry. Not at the enforcement itself, but at the complete absence of any serious effort to make sure the public understood what was changing and why before it changed. People deserve to know the rules they are being held to before they are held to them. Subscribe to this channel, share this video, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Because this conversation is just getting started. And the drivers who understand what is happening on these roads right now are the ones who will not be blindsided when the automated envelope shows up in their mailbox.